Well, hello there, Hatch Tribe. I hope that you're having a good day. We are about to kick off our Design Your Day workshop, where we're going to talk all about time blocking and really how to use this as a strategy to gain more control of your day and to be able to get more done and get the right stuff done. So really leveraging this for both success in achieving your goals, but also in just true productivity, really staying aligned to that which you want to do in your business. So for those of you who've popped on, I see we've got Laura and Brandy. If one of you will just give me a little shout out in the comments and let me know that you can hear me, that the volume's okay, that would be amazing. And of course, I'm sure folks will hop on as we get rolling, and we're gonna get rolling as soon as I know that I can hear you. Awesome. Thank you so much, Brandy. I appreciate it. Okay, cool. So just to cover a couple of things. So this is going to be very workshop driven. So there are 3 worksheets that are posted right now into the comments section over on the right-hand side of the screen. So download each of those and print them if you are in a position to do so, because it will be easier to use those versus writing them in a workbook or like a notebook and having to go back and forth. And if you have questions as we go through it, do ask them as we go, because I want to make sure you get your questions answered, because this kind of builds on one another. So typically I would say drop your questions into that bottom button where it says ask a question. But I think for the sake of this, we can keep it in the chat box, because I'll bounce in and out of looking at the screen with you guys. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to get started. And we're going to start with just laying some foundation, because I want to make sure we're on the same page with what this is really all about. And there's some key things that I believe are important that we agree upon, because if you're not in alignment with the way to look at time, you're not going to get the best experience out of this. And by that, I really mean you're not going to retain this and keep implementing it. So I want to make sure we lay a little bit of foundation. So let's go ahead and get started. So as I mentioned today, the conversation is all about designing your day and really using that as an intentional mechanism. Intentional. We're going to talk about what this means. An intentional way of approaching your life, approaching your schedule, approaching your work and personal life, and really utilizing this so that you can get more out of your day. And we're going to talk about how time blocks feed into that, and helping you experience more productivity and success. So this is the right workshop for you if any of these things sound true. So the first is, you may feel like you're busy. And most business owners would say that, you're busy, but maybe you're struggling to get enough of the right work done. So you might be caught up in stuff, and at the end of the day, still look at this list of things and be like, damn, why do I still have these things on my plate? Why can I never get these done? Another thing is, if you were often overwhelmed or exhausted after your workday, there are improvements that you can make. And we're going to talk about some of those tweaks to your schedule today. If you're finding little time or energy to pursue your own personal interest outside of work, and to be clear, this is a very common complaint for business owners, because we tend to swing that pendulum pretty far towards work. So this is going to help you address that. And we're actually going to start talking about personal time blocks first. And the last piece is, you're in the right place if you feel like your schedule is running you instead of you running it. And this is very common. So know that if that's your experience right now with your day, you're like, man, this is completely out of control. Like I have no control over this. It's running me. We're going to pull that back around so that you can start to shift back into the driver's seat. So here's what you're going to learn. First is, we're going to talk about the limiting beliefs and actions that are truly zapping your productivity and what you need to do about it. We're going to talk about how to adopt this proactive and intentional approach to your calendar that puts you back in the driver's seat, where you're running it instead of it running you. We're going to talk about how to improve time management and productivity by using time blocks, and how to build really good ones that help you get the most out of your day, out of your week. And we'll talk about that number one key to success when it comes to managing your time. And that's that one thing that I'm going to ask you to agree upon before we go much further. Now, to be clear, this training is not for you if you're looking for a quick fix to repair years of habits. all of us have embraced our lives in the way that we have. And it's the own indoctrination and years of what we've been doing that's led to how you are managing your day right now. It's going to take some time to unwind some of that. So I just want you to be patient with that. It's not about getting a quick fix. And it's also not about getting it right. And we're going to talk about how to utilize this process and it truly being iterative, that you're going to change it over time and that it should change with you. It very much should be living and breathing. In my own experience, this methodology, it changes every month or so, depending on my priorities and how potentially they've shifted, and life in general. And the last piece is, this is not for you if you're not willing to take full accountability for your time. And we're going to talk about some of these myths that really get in the way. But if you believe that others are at fault for your schedule, you will not fully embrace this methodology. And we'll talk about where that little myth kind of comes in play. This is the piece that I want you to start to embrace. You are 100% responsible for your time. No one else, only you. And this is a really important piece that you start to embrace right now, because as we move forward, you're going to be sitting in the driver's seat if you can really take this to heart. And we'll talk about why sometimes you may perceive this is not the case. Because some of these things are probably already coming up in your head. Like, yeah, I hear you. I'm responsible for my time, but I'm super busy. Of course you are. I don't have any free time. Yeah, some days you don't. I have so much shit on my plate. So do the rest of us. My clients take advantage of me. Have you ever said that? Who allowed that to happen? My clients need this in a hurry. How many of you have dropped everything you're doing to go handle something for a client that said I need this right now, and they're in a frantic moment and suddenly you've made this now your problem? That's when they were available. Insert whoever that is. Someone called the shot and you went with it without voicing any other alternative, right? My partner, my kids, my family, who insert whomever here, needed me to do. And yes, I want to be very clear. I know that there are times when this is factual truth. Your kid's sick, you have to go pick up your kid from daycare. I get it. These things happen. But the vast majority of the time, the things that come up are things where we actually have control. We just don't exercise it. And the last one is anytime we're using the language I had to, it tends to be a thought that's starting to lead us in this direction. Are these beliefs? These are beliefs. They're not real facts. Are these beliefs really serving you? And I think that in most cases we can say no. The more I sit around and say, I'm so busy, I don't have any time, I'm so frantic, I'm so rushed, everybody takes advantage of me, my parents or my partner is calling all the shots, I have no control of my time, I had to do this. How good does that feel? Not at all. Now you may say, that's not really my issue, but I still want to get better control of my calendar. That's cool. But do notice if these cues are coming up for you in your language around your time, because this tends to be a big disconnect we have about our time. Time and how we use it is a choice. So all of these statements really lead us into what I call this box of limiting beliefs, where if we believe all of those statements or any of those statements, it unfortunately puts us in the position of being victim to our calendar instead of being in control of it. And we start to give up agency. We're saying, well, other people have control of my calendar. They scheduled this. I had to do this. They did this. My client stole my time. We give up agency to that. And at the end of the day, it leads us to this moment where it's well, I don't have any choice. And what I believe is that as business owners, choice is the ultimate freedom that you have, because you have created a business that is your own. You have choice. It just doesn't mean you're always exercising it. And so the exercise for us today is going to be able to shift you into a place where you say, because I have choice, I want to make these decisions and get in better alignment with what I want to do. So when we live outside this box of limiting beliefs, we're now in alignment with our goals. We're choosing with intention. how we will spend our time. We also will experience greater productivity. And think about it, it makes perfect sense. If I say these are my goals and I'm aligning my time to them, of course we're going to get more out of it. Now, another thing that comes from that is healthy boundaries, and clients are a really good example of that for business owners. Anytime you're dropping the ball in like a nanosecond for a client or a customer because they have an urgent need, you're teaching your clients to treat you that way. You're teaching them that every time they call, you're going to rush to their rescue. So we want to retrain that and really build healthy boundaries with customers and with clients and anybody else. This could be even internal, like with employees or contractors or anybody else. We want healthy boundaries with all the partners we work with. And, I'll give an example, even in a workspace. It could, sorry, I've got an eyelash on my, it could be the person who like constantly pings you like, hey, can you help me with this thing? Can you help me with this thing? Can you help me with this thing? And sometimes we have to just reframe how we're interacting with that person, right? Healthy boundary. And all of that, when we really step into alignment with our calendar and we're living it intentionally, we tend to experience more joy around both life and work because our needs are getting met. And we're going to start really talking about the personal side of the coin because you do have control of that too, to a large degree. So this is the piece that I want you to embrace. And this is like really that number one foundation of living from a place of intention and from alignment, is that you have agency over the majority of your time. Of course, and as I mentioned before, there are things that will come up that we are legit out of control of, don't have control. We are going to have to do whatever that thing is. But more often than not, we do sit in a place where we have a lot of agency, control over the things that we do. And these are choices that we make every single week, every single day. And by pulling back and really planning this with intention, you're going to be able to start to experience that. So let's sit with this quote for a second. Nobody is too busy. It's just a matter of priorities. Good things happen when you set your priorities straight. If you don't have time, the truth is you don't have priorities. And so oftentimes, people take a little bit of objection to this thought. Like, well, what do you mean? Like, if it's not happening, like, it's still important to me. It may be, but it may not have been important enough for you to deprioritize something else. And that's where choice comes in. So everything about your schedule is a choice. So anything that's getting time is truly getting priority over the things that keep falling on that list that never get done. So I want you to recognize that. And this is where ownership, 100% ownership comes in. You own it, nobody else. Like, you're in the driver's seat, and that's a big gift, but it's also a burden in many ways, right? So intentional, let's just talk about this word for a minute, because this is what we're building today, is an intentional calendar. It is done on purpose. It is deliberate. And so if you want to achieve good things out of your business and achieve the goals that you've set and reach the vision that's important to you and that's meaningful to you, we really are better off to approach our lives and approach our businesses from a place of intention as opposed to doing it from a place of accident. And the way I like to think about this too is that, early business owners, like, if you're in the first couple years, it's like everything starts to feel crazy. But if we don't start to change that behavior and start acting like the CEO in our businesses, we'll stay in that struggling entrepreneur space for a really long time. So it's up to you to really step into this place of living with intention and handling your calendar with intention. It's purposeful, it's decisive, it's deliberate, it's aligned. And that's where you start acting like the CEO. That's where you start operating truly as the leader that your business needs you to be, and truly that your audience needs you to be, your customers need you to be. Okay, so here's what we're getting ready to do. We're going to break this up into 4 parts. So the first is we're going to uncover your personal priorities. And I really like to start here because as a business owner, you have a little bit more freedom around this, a lot more, than our counterparts do who are working for someone else. Then we're going to talk about your business priorities, and I'm going to guide you through that activity. Now, once we have those pieces together, we're going to build a draft of your intentional calendar. Once we have that draft, we're going to discuss those next steps, and then we're going to move on from there. So let me switch screens. I'm going to share a different file. So for you, what I would say is go ahead and open up the personal activities. It's worksheet number 1 that's linked out of the chat box over here. And then I'm going to share that as well. And if y'all ever are not seeing what I'm talking about, please just let me know in the comments. I try to check both, but sometimes we don't get to see the same screen at the same time. Okay, so let me see what I'm trying to find here. Code for it. Hide that. Okay, where is the screen I want? Here we go. Okay, so what you were looking at on your screen right now is the direction that we're headed. So I simply wanted to show you this. We are not working on this file yet, but we are going to have something by the end of this that looks something like this. And you're going to be doing this via handwriting for this first version, but I am going to give you this file later that you can work on it on your own. So we'll have something like this that's meant to be a guideline where you have time blocks, where you've made choices about both personal things like the gym and work things like client meetings and follow-ups, and you've planned them in advance in an intentional way that's very deliberate. Okay, so let's start on this worksheet. So we should be looking at one that says personal activities. And let me just make sure that that's on the screen. Yeah, okay, cool. So we're going to work on this one first. So if everybody will grab that file, and I'm just going to kind of guide you through a few things here. So as it relates to the personal activities worksheet, you're going to see a common list of activities that are down the left-hand side. Now, kids aren't necessarily an activity, though I know you do activities with your kids, right? So all of the things down the left-hand side tend to fall into like our personal camp of life. And there are some spots at the bottom of the worksheet that say other. So in the event that you don't see something here that you do, that's personal, that you want to plan for, you're going to just drop it into these boxes that say other. So let me just walk you through how we're going to do this. So at the top, you're going to see that there are 3 columns. The first is current status, meaning how much time in your current world, roughly speaking, are you allotting to this particular thing? How much? When's it happening? What days? That type of thing. In the next column, we have desired status. So let me just take an example, and I'm going to use fitness because this is one that often comes up. So maybe current status is none, like legit not working out at all, but I want to. So in desired status, we may now say, yes, I want to work out. And ideally, I'd like it to be 5 days a week for an hour. So we're starting to kind of plot this idea of what we want. What's the desired state of that particular thing? Now, you'll see in the last column, it says, could you ask for help? Now, clearly, some things might be weird, like asking for help or delegating or outsourcing something related to like your relationship with your partner could be weird. Like maybe that's not the thing. But a couple of examples could be like, if you're looking to improve the quality of your relationship with your partner, maybe one of the things you're designating as a weekly date night where you and your partner are going out. And what we're asking for help is, I need a babysitter for 2 hours every weekend night. So I want you to be thinking about, and this is because there's a true bandwidth to how much you can do without asking others to pitch in to be part of your solution, right? And we'll talk about that in the business front too, but it pertains on the personal front. So let me give another example of where you might see that. So let's look at food. So this is one where, you know, if you sincerely don't have time to cook the healthy food that you would like, which you may say is, well, I'd really like to hire help for that. And maybe it's just having a meal prep service, prep food and drop it off. And that's getting me back some time. So maybe right now you're like, I'm spending 3 hours on Sundays and my desired status is 0 hours on Sundays. The way I solve for that is getting some help. So does this make sense? I just want to pop over into the comments. So if someone will give me a like, yep, I'm tracking with you kind of comment, that would be great. And what I'm going to do is give you guys a couple minutes to just work through this worksheet. And once I have a sense that you guys are like wrapping up on this one, we're going to move on. So let's just say, let's see where we get in 5 minutes because I want to leave a bit more space for business. Okay, Brandy, cool, you're good. So let's go for 5 minutes. I'm going to shut up. If you have questions, put them in the chat box. Thank you, Melissa, picking up what you're putting down. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to be quiet now. Okay, we got about 45 seconds left. Okay, so whatever you've got down, we're just going to go with it. You can refine this later. So I wanted to point out just a couple of things. So you may have thought as you went through this, well, gosh, do I really need to put this in the plan? And I'll give you an example, travel. This might be something where you're like, yeah, sounds great. I'd like to have that in my weekly plan. And it may not fit there. This may be something where it's like, yeah, I want to do it, but it really more fits in my annual plan, like really thinking about projecting forward and putting it there. And that's fine. I want you to just be intentional about it and be thinking about it. And I also wanted to give an example of one of the things that, like, it's an innocent thing, but it can wreck our day, especially when we perceive how much time we have available for work. And pets is one of those. So I no longer have a dog, but when I had a dog, I had to walk her multiple times a day. And maybe many of you have this experience too, where it's like, man, like that 10 minutes, and then there's 10 minutes again and 10 minutes again. Jesus, the next time it's 15 minutes. And then suddenly an hour of your entire day is gone simply walking your dog. And if you're doing that repeatedly throughout the course of your day, you may notice that it's really disrupting the flow of your day. And how much time does it actually? Is it just the 10 minutes, or we've now potentially disrupted 20 minutes or 30 minutes of you just getting in and out of those tasks? And this may be one where you say, God, I didn't realize how disruptive it was. I could get a dog walker to actually support me and help me on the personal front. You see how that kind of starts to come together? So for now, we're just going to put a pin in the personal side, and we're going to go ahead and move on. And I want to talk about the business side of the coin. So keep this where we're at, and we're going to go to that worksheet number 2, which is business activities. So it should look like this, so business activities. And I'm just going to talk you through this just like we did on the other one. Now, on the business activities side, here is where we're really going to start to see where the rubber meets the road. And here's where that like nasty to-do list of things that you notice just never gets done is going to show up. We're going to see it illustrated really, really well. So down that left-hand side of the screen, what you're looking at or in your worksheet are the things that are common business activities and things that we really do want, generally speaking, to be investing in, especially these things at the top. So sales, all the things that entails: prospecting, outreach, meetings, calls, follow-ups, contracts, things like client meetings, people that are already working with you. Where are the meetings? Like, where do you actually put meetings and where do you want to put meetings? Scheduling them, confirming them. That next section, marketing, and this is a giant one. Not only content creation and scheduling, but things like social media, your newsletter, your blog, print, collateral, mail, any of the other things that you're doing. There could be a lot of different activities here. Networking, if you're one of those people who, and I know this year's a bad example, but you may say networking's so important to my business, like I really want to plan for that. And I need to carve space for it to make sure that I'll do it. This next bucket, doing your work, like this is where we're fulfilling the things that we have sold. So let's say you're in the marketing business and, you do social media work for your clients. Well, we need to have time for you to sit down and do the work for your clients, not only your own social media to market and promote your business, but now the social media for your clients. And there's a variety of other things: customer service, team meetings, like times when you're actually with your team, training and education. This could be even personal development or professional development where you say enrolled in a course, or like this, where you're carving out time to do Hatch Tribes content. Money, the finance, the accounting. When are you sitting down to do that? What about that big picture thinking? Where are you building strategy into your world? And then the other things like email, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there are some blanks here again for you to add in and plan some other things that potentially you're not seeing on this list of things. So we're going to repeat the same process. So I want you to start by saying, okay, well, cool, what's the current status? And let's just pick on sales for a minute. So you may say, current status, not really working on sales actively. If I am, it's sporadically. And maybe that's what you write. And you say desired status, like I'd like to be working on it every week. I know I need to be prospecting and I need an hour of time for that. And I know that I need to be outreaching and I need an hour of time for that. So you might just start jotting down notes for that. And one of the things here is when are you at your best for this activity? So if you have enough time as we kind of go through this part, capture a note there, because it might be, I'm better at that by morning. Like if you wait until the afternoon, it's never going to happen. So just think about when it potentially could take place. And then the last piece is, could you delegate, hire, outsource it? Now, I do not need you to be prepared to hand that over. I just want you to identify at this moment, is there anything in there, anything that at some point in time you could give away? You don't have to be ready to give it away right now. And we're not really making that type of decision today, but I want you to start thinking in that way, because again, that's what's going to move you from being in like that frantic, struggling entrepreneur space to really running your business like a brilliant CEO. So we want to be thinking about what types of stuff we can start getting off of our plate. So I'm going to assume you guys are tracking with me. If you have any questions, let me know. Drop them over into the comment box. And I'm going to go ahead and set the timer for just a little bit longer. Let's do like 6 minutes on this page or this worksheet. If you have questions, let me know. Okay, we've got about 2 minutes left, but if for those of you who are live, if anybody's like, I'm good to go, just drop me a note and let me know you're like pretty well wrapped up. And then we can proceed forward a little earlier if you're done. Okay, Brandy says she's done. So we're gonna go with Brandy. We've got 1 minute left anyway. So you're gonna have an opportunity to continue to refine this. I just want to get you through the thinking process and kind of part of this as we continue to roll forward. So I'm sure that this was illuminating, even just putting this down and really thinking about, am I giving this attention in my business? Is it getting enough attention? Does it need more? Do I want to give it more? What are the things that do keep winding up on my list that just never get done that I know good and damn well I need to be doing in order to move the ball forward in my business? So what we're now going to do is start to build this into the calendar. And so what file you're going to want to use is this one, your intentional calendar. It's worksheet number 3. And I am going to give you guys the Google Sheets files. So for now, you're just going to play in the written version. I'll give you the Google Sheets file and post that with the replay so that if you want to create this digitally, you can. And I do recommend that. I actually really like keeping old versions. So you can run one for the next couple weeks, make some changes, copy that, and then have a new template that you can build off of over time. And I just find that's helpful because sometimes it's nice to go back and look at what you were doing at some period in time, when things looked a little different in your business. So that said, I'm going to show you guys this file so that I can make some changes on the screen and we can kind of walk through this together. So here's what we want to do in terms of translating this now towards an intentional calendar. So I want to talk you through how we're going to begin. And the way we want to begin is actually starting with personal time blocks, because if we start filling in with work, which you're going to very quickly notice is that it gets hard. It gets hard to fill in the things that you now want to do that make you feel good and make you feel whole and make you feel like a human, and all of those reasons that were why you originally created your business to begin with, like this sense of freedom and independence and getting to choose to do the things you wanted to do. You can with intention. So we're going to choose them. We're getting ready to choose some of those things. So for your personal activities, I want you to pull back out that worksheet and I want you to look at a couple of things. We have things that we need to do and we have things that we want to do. So a need might be, I need to pick up my kids from school at this time. So we're going to need to get those needs, pun not intended there, need to get the needs on the calendar first. Those are our obligations that we have that we absolutely must make space for. After that, we have our wants. And we kind of put these into a couple categories. One is like my non-negotiables. So for example, that may be you. You may say, I work out every day. It's non-negotiable, my time. I'm putting it on the calendar. And there may be other things where it's like, I just want the space for them. I want free time. I want time to hang out with my kids. I want time to like take my dog to the park, whatever the case may be. Okay. So the way we're going to do this is starting again with whatever matters to you out of those personal time blocks. So in this example that I'm showing you, so I might have dropped in like, okay, I want to go to the gym 5 times out of the week. I'm plugging that in Monday through Friday from 6 to 7 because that's when I want to go. It could be non-negotiable potentially. Now I know after that I need to get ready. I don't just go from the gym straight to meeting with a client, right? So I need some buffer time. So I start to lay that in, right? So I may get down here and say, it's really important to me that I have a break for lunch. So I'm actually going to put that on the calendar, or this could be walk the dog. You feeling me? So we want to get in some of those obligations and non-negotiables and want to do's, all from the personal buckets first. Okay. So in this example, everything that's pink is something that in this example, I have qualified in that way. So gym, getting ready, grocery and meal prep, family fun time. Even these giant unscheduled blocks in some cases will fall in there. Here, free time, networking event, all that's a little bit business oriented. Dinner, family time, bedtime, you get the point. So I want to just give you a couple minutes to play with this. So let's get personal stuff on first, okay? So let's go with like 2 minutes, and then somebody just give me like a little comment and let me know like, yep, we're good, we got the personal blocks loaded. Okay, so while you're continuing to kind of plug in a few more things on the personal front, I just want to share a couple of things here. So one, you don't have to plan everything, right? If there are things that you're like, they're already seamlessly happening, you probably don't have to control them because they've already become a habit. So when we think about this oftentimes, and especially on the personal front, it's really more about just creating that space, the space for the things to happen that are important to you. And getting, and really, getting's not the right word, creating the balance that you desire, so it's really helping counterbalance in many cases all the things that you're doing on the professional front so that, you do experience more joy in your life, that pendulum, as we were talking about earlier, doesn't swing so far onto that business side that you're like, man, I never have time to do anything for fun anymore. All I do is work, And you may notice, like here in this example, a lot of it was just built as unscheduled time, but you may say like, I really want to plan this. Like on Saturdays, we do X, Y, or Z as a family. Cool, build it. Like your schedule is going to look like your own. It shouldn't look like anybody else's. It doesn't matter what anybody else's looks like. It just matters that it's yours. So what you now have on the calendar from a personal standpoint should illustrate for me what's important to you. Now, one caveat is sometimes you say, but I don't do that thing every week. Like I do it every other week, or I do it whatever. That's fine. Sometimes I work with clients and they have two versions, and it's like week 1 and 2, especially if there's something that's like happening every other week. And that's a similar philosophy for business. So sometimes I have clients who, for example, if they're meeting with clients, they only meet with them on like every other week so that they get weeks in between for lots of time to work on their own stuff. So you can do that similarly with business. So in that case, I would say just copy that template when you build it in the file and build week 1 and week 2. Now, before we move on, at this point, you have some stuff on your calendar. There's some buckets that are filled and some that are not. So let me just take this template as an example. So let's just say that, you've now filled in stuff that's taking up this space. and maybe we've knocked out this for lunch, and maybe we get down here and you're like, yeah, I don't want to work after 5, and we've now knocked out that. Cool. So now, as it relates to translating this over to our business, we now need to see how much time we actually have, to be working when we fill up the rest of the time with the things we want to be doing. And so I want you to look at these openings now. So in this case, we have from 8 to 12 open. So I have 4 hours on Monday. And then in this case, I have 12:30 to 4:30 open. And that would give me, let's see, my math's going to suck now, 5.5 hours, 4.5 hours. Am I doing that right? Anyway, you get the point. So this is really important because sometimes by the time you fill in the personal things and you create all these buffers, you're like, I have 20 hours left to do work. And that may not be sufficient. Some things have to give potentially. Or you're like, okay, I have 40 hours. Like, I got to get after it. Like, in the 40 hours I have, I really now need to use that time wisely. And that pertains no matter how many hours you've created as an opening for your work. But it's important that you understand what that is, because we can't cram 60 hours of work into 20 hours of space. And this is where really being clear about your goals is important, and if you have 60 hours of work, but only 20 hours available, something's got to give. So either you're giving up personal time, or you're hiring or outsourcing or bringing somebody else into the fold to take some of that work off of your plate. And that's why that exercise is really important on the business front. So now what I'd like you to do is take that business activities worksheet out, and we're going to talk through what happens now. So now things can get a little bit more interesting on this front, because many times we're not doing the same thing every day at the exact same time. So let me just give you a few examples in this example calendar of things I see clients often do. So one is email. Many people find it productive to have just a set time for when they're tackling email. And in this example, email's only on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning, but it's every day in the afternoon between 4 and 5. Fine. Doesn't have to be your version. Social media. It may be something where you're like, I need to get in and do the engagement. I'm going to do this at a set time. Here it's a 30-minute work block. I'm going to encourage you, never plan something that's less than 30 minutes or it's going to feel really voracious, but also avoid planning a lot of things that are 30-minute chunks because it just feels rushed. So you will feel better with bigger work blocks. So like anything from an hour to 3 hours is ideal because it allows you to kind of drop into the task and get into flow and start to experience that flow state where the brain just drops into the activity and feels at ease. And that's what we want, so we can get more done. So a couple of blocks here in purple are things that don't happen every day, but fall into those really important things. So like, okay, marketing. In this example, Tuesday from 8:30 to 10 is a marketing work block. A good hour and a half to just sit down and do that thing. And then there's another block from 10:30 to 12 where it's also marketing, but it could be client meetings if it needs to be client meetings. Because note in this example, I have client meetings all in the afternoon from 1:30 to 4:30. So this could give me some flexibility with that spot. Now I've got a box for sales. In this case, this is about a 4-hour block. Okay, cool. 4 hours to work on sales every single week on Wednesdays. Great. Accounting and invoicing on Fridays, 1 hour. Content creation and scheduling Friday afternoons for an hour and a half. And then I've also dropped in some areas for breaks. Breaks are good. They give buffer. It's like a chance to step away from your desk and not feel like you're rushing and racing through the things. And then I also have these areas of like focused work blocks. And this is where oftentimes if you do client work, you can sit down and do client focused work. So I'm going to let you play with yours and start to just put things in. And I'm going to encourage you, like, there's no right or wrong. You're going to change it. So just start playing. Think about where that activity is going to feel good to you and where your brain is going to be most excited about doing it. So if I was like, hey, you're going to do sales calls at 8:30 in the morning, you might be like, the hell I am. That's at 1 in the afternoon. So think about what works for you. It only needs to work for you, nobody else, you and your team, okay? So I'm gonna set the timer for a couple minutes and let you guys rock on that. If you have questions, let me know how you're tracking. Okay, I have no doubt that you are not entirely done, but I suspect you have a few things down. I'm just going to talk you through a couple things and you can keep playing and plotting. So one of the things we want to be cognizant of is that anytime we're in growth mode, meaning you want more customers and clients, you want to grow your business, you want to grow your revenue, is we have to have sales and marketing on the calendar. We simply cannot grow the business without actively putting time into it or hiring someone to do it for you. So please make sure if you're in growth mode that you've got that on the calendar. Two, I always recommend giving yourself more time than you think you need. And I'm going to give you an example of where I made lots of mistakes in early iterations of this. So I would pack in like 30-minute blocks. It'd be like email, crush out social media, build the newsletter, build this other newsletter. And like it felt insane. And every time I couldn't get the newsletter done in like this tiny 30-minute work block that I had, I felt like crap. And of course, was I ever getting it done in 30 minutes? No, it wasn't enough time. So oddly enough, it was something I had shared with my therapist that I was feeling so defeated by my calendar. And she said, double everything. Like if you think it takes an hour, give yourself 2. And that feels really gross. Like to me, it did. I was like, ugh, but then it's such a waste of time. And I kind of reframed the way I thought about it. And over time, I now practice this in a different way. So now I say, give myself more time. If I finish it more swiftly, I get to get through more of my day more quickly. And then I have open time. And with the open time, I get to tackle some of those things that I don't often get to. They sit on that not yet list, So give yourself more time is the moral of the story than you think you need, and really avoid all the tiny 30-minute chunks, because those are the ones that will they'll end up making you feel a bit crazy. Okay, so let's talk about next steps. So one is, I want you to really think about this as being a first draft. Whatever you have on this page right now, it's gonna change, and we're gonna talk about that in a minute. But do work your way through it. Do finalize something, and I'm actually gonna come back and share the other slides with you because I wanna talk through that. So hang on. Let me go do that. And if you guys have questions, go ahead and tee them up, because we're gonna talk about that in just a minute. What am I looking for? Where can I find the slides? I think they're here. Yeah, they are. Okay, cool. Hang on one second. There we go. Okay, so these are next steps. One, finalize the first draft of your intentional calendar and truly treat it like the first draft. I've been doing this for years in my business, and I have probably 30 or 40 of them. I could go back and show you other iterations of things that I've done, and it continues to evolve and change. And it should, because your priorities will change. As you and your business grow. One example, you hire somebody. You now have a team meeting. Cool. That's got to go on the calendar. That's one of those things that's an obligation. We want to do it. It's got to go on there first. We're now going to build things around it, right? So it should change with you. But what I want you to do with this first version is finalize it and print it. And I want you to keep it with you, print off the document, keep it by your desk, and I want you to look at it as you're working in your calendar every day and say, okay, can I execute this plan? Now, in the Design Your Day course, and we'll talk about that in a minute, there's a full course. I actually teach you how to build this as a template inside Google Calendar, where you can add that, and then you can layer it over your calendar and use it as sort of a template, which can be a nice thing if you really want to have that as a guide. Long story short, keep it as a guide, use it as a guide. And as you're working through it, I want you to capture key takeaways. So you may say, and let's just use my nasty newsletter example, wow, planned 30 minutes for that, needed an hour and a half. That's going to need to change, right? Or planned on meeting with clients between 1 and 4. All of my clients are asking for morning meetings. Can I find a solution for that? Okay, right? So we're now making a choice about it. Now, to be clear, things are also going to come up. You might have things on your calendar for the next 2 weeks that are not aligned with this. So what we want to start doing is working towards it. So for me, a good example would be when I want to meet with clients and when I don't. So now when I'm in a position to propose the meeting time, which I'm always in the position to propose it, right? I'm going to say, great, let's meet it Tuesday, 1 p.m. So I will propose what works for me. And that really puts you in the driver's seat. So just play with that. Then we're going to tweak the calendar. Whatever's not working, we're going to tweak it. We're going to take that next iteration into the next 2 weeks and run with it from there. So a few guiding principles here. One, test and tweak, test and tweak. It's just like everything else in your business, just like everything with marketing. 2, the choice is almost always yours. And let's come back to this example of scheduling meetings. Anytime you can propose the meeting, propose it, and propose the time you want. Go to this and say, fantastic. I said I wanted to meet with clients on Wednesdays from 1 to 5. Cool. I'm going to propose it. Hey, what about Wednesday afternoon? I'm available anytime between 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Does anything in there work for you? Driver's seat. In many cases, they're going to come along to your side. Now, if they say, I can't, I'm going to need to find another time, cool. That's fine. Negotiate it, but figure out where you want it to go on your calendar. And yes, shit happens. Sometimes your calendar is going to get just completely destroyed, and that's okay. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. The work that you've done here is important. It's intentional. It's meaningful. Just come right back to it. Let whatever happen, happen. Let the schedule get blown asunder. Oftentimes it can be family things. My poor friend Kat, who lives in California, it's her son has been sick constantly. And she's constantly having to leave work and go pick him up from daycare. And she's like, my God, I'm like, never get to execute my plan. And that's okay, because sometimes that's what happens. That's life. But she can pull right back to this as soon as her son's better and be like, I'm on plan. I'm running it. So just pick right back up and go with it. Now, I mentioned this earlier. There is a complete course on this where we go through this quite a bit slower. So you have time to build this in a a little more than an hour. So this is something you have access to as a member in the Hatch Tribe Collective. So you can find this at that link, hatchtribeprograms.com/library, and you'll find that there. So if you want to dig in further, that is a great place to do that. So I'm going to come back to the screen. I want to see if you guys have any questions about this. Let me see. I know there's a comment here. Beth. Game changer for me was automated calendar schedulers. Decide when you do appointments and reduce the back and forth of picking a time. Yeah, Beth, that's great. And if that's working for you, I say go with it. A lot of folks I know, like, they find that that's really perfect. It's like you decide when you're available, you create that calendar invite. You could use Calendly. I don't know what you use, but yeah, share that with people and say, feel free to book a time that works for you. And it's now like, it's the times you want. And I actually like that, like as the consumer end of that, to me, that actually feels really good of like, okay, cool. I see your calendar. I can look and see what works for me. Don't have to do the back and forth. Yeah, that's fantastic. So just to kind of wrap up, and if you have any questions, ask them now. You're always in control of your calendar with exception. You know, you have agency over your time. You do have a choice. And yes, there are times when shit happens, but most of the time, the majority of the time, we have control over that. And if we really want to transition from being in that struggling space in our businesses to truly operating as like a CEO, being a confident, brilliant CEO, this is the shift we have to make. We really need to pull our schedule in alignment with where we're going. And there are a lot of CEOs, and you've probably read about them in the news, that have a lot of blank time in their calendar because they're using it to just create space. Now, you may not be there yet. You may say, like, I still have a lot of things that need to be worked on, and I don't have a lot of time at this moment to put just open ends of space. And that's okay. You're not at that moment in time. So don't let either end of that dictate to you what you need to do or what you should do. Again, it's iterative. It's going to change with you, and it should change with you. So don't get caught up. You're not creating this for life. Like, whatever you decide right now, and an example for me is like, when do I work out? I've gone back and forth from it being like 5 or 6 in the morning to it being in the middle of the day, to it being 4 o'clock, to it being 5 o'clock. Like, it's a season. So sometimes we just need to go with the flow, go with the season, go with what works, right? And that's the gift. You have that choice. So make the choice and then get support and get help, both personal and professional. And some of these things you're not ready yet to ask for help, and you don't have to be, but you can identify it so that when you're ready to pull the trigger, you now have some things that you can say, yeah, I've already identified that. That's like 2 hours I want back, and I want to use that for something else that only I can do. Someone else can do whatever, right? They can walk your dogs. Okay. I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions, of course, don't hesitate to reach out. I will post the full replay inside the Collective Facebook group and inside, of course, the Collective membership site. And I will link inside the Collective membership site that Google Sheet so you can take it and edit it fully. So you're just going to take that file, save it to your Google Drive. You can edit it and play with it there. Yeah, we'll go from there. Thanks, Melissa. I appreciate you being here today. And Beth and Brandy and Elizabeth. I was like, who else have I not mentioned? Yes, thank you all. You stuck around till the end. I'm proud of you. Yeah, oh, absolutely, Elizabeth. Got you on the editable. All right, y'all have a really good day. Thank you for allowing me to run over by 4 minutes. I hope you have a really good rest of your day. I'll see you inside the Facebook group. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.